There was a wrongness that settled in the small theater long before I ever stood under the single bulb. The air clung like a damp curtain. The emergency exit sign hummed a low, constant octave, and the program sheets in the foyer bore a faint, repeating smudge that never matched any ink. People laughed at the edges, nervous, hollow sounds, because they had come from my voice for the clean thrill of being unsettled. Something watched the way the audience leaned forward. I began each night like a cartographer of fear, sketching recognizable routes, a creak here, a remembered name there, a story that looped just enough to make the human heart tidy and taut. But the details started to refuse their maps. A man in the third row described a childhood pond I had never heard of. A woman at the back hummed a lullaby I had used only once in a 10-year-old workshop. The recordings I kept of the sessions bent at their edges, phrases elongated into whistles, laughter folding into languages that had no consonants I knew. The lights flickered in patterns that made the audience's pupils widen in the same unblinking rhythm. My confidence eroded like old plaster. At home, I would wake in the small hours with names on my lips that felt borrowed. Mirrors reported me a half-second behind. I found tiny drawings between the pages of my notebooks, spiral coordinates that refused Euclidean sense, inked by hands that were not mine. Colleagues shrugged. Fans called me a genius for bringing them to the brink. The brink, I discovered, had a sound like a choir tuning to wrong intervals, and it sang to me when I was alone. One night, the baritone hum organized itself into a face, if a face can be called that, when it was made of angles that hurt the brain to follow. It unmade the edges of the stage and pushed a geometry through the room. Audience members, shadows elongated into lattices, the air took on a taste of iron and distant rain. The thing, if thing is a word adequate to what now leaned on our perception, had no cruelty, only a curiosity like a scientist peering at a slide. It learned by imitating us. It learned my cadences and threaded them back into the stories, until I could not tell which sentences were my invention, and which were its translation of something older than language. I stopped inviting them. I sealed the theater, but at dusk, under the humming exit sign, I would hear applause that came from my own throat and did not belong to me, a polite, precise ovation given to the wrong performer. I burned the notebooks, and the embers rearranged themselves into spirals on the floor. I listened to the silences and found them full of signatures. I closed down the nights, locked the doors, put boards across the windows, and yet the sound that had practiced my voice kept answering. In the quiet hours it rehearsed me back into existence, line by line, until it felt as though the theater had learned to speak my name and then refused to tell me where it had heard it first.